In 2017, a brilliant 15-year-old girl discovered a hidden corner of the internet, one she was never supposed to see. What started as a harmless obsession with computers and hacking quickly spiraled into something far darker and far more dangerous. Within weeks, she stopped eating, began talking to herself, and claimed she was being hunted by something no one else could see. Her family thought it was stress, maybe a breakdown. But when objects started moving on their own, when her room twisted in impossible ways, and when she began to vanish right in front of their eyes, they realized they weren't dealing with something psychological. They were dealing with something else entirely. And by the time they figured out what it was already too late. Our story begins with a woman named Latifa. Now, that's not her real name, but we'll stick with it to protect her identity. Latifa is 35 now, but this story takes us back to when she was still a teenager, living at home with her parents and her younger sister. We'll call that sister Sarah. Sarah was 15 when this all began. Latifa says from a very young age, it was obvious her sister was special. Not in a weird way. She was just smart, like next level smart. While other kids were still figuring out how to use a mouse, Sarah was already diving into coding, programming, scripting, cybersecurity stuff, things that made most people's heads spin. For Sarah, they were like second nature. She was a prodigy. And their parents noticed. They fully supported her talent, buying her high-end computers, advanced tech gear, anything that could help her grow. Their hope was that one day she'd become something big. A software engineer, a hacker for the good guys, maybe even a cyber defense expert. But Sarah had another hobby, one that, looking back, should have set off alarm bells. See, she had this habit of poking around places on the internet that most people don't even know exist. Encrypted websites, restricted databases, dark corners of the web where you're definitely not supposed to be. She wasn't trying to break anything or cause harm. She didn't mess with people's accounts or leak data. She just liked getting in. It was a challenge, like digital trespassing, and it became her entire world. Latifa shared a room with her. Every night she'd fall asleep to the sound of keys clacking as Sarah sat at her computer, locked in on another forbidden site, just exploring. Not hacking in the dangerous sense, just watching. But then, something changed. Sarah's curiosity drifted from computers to something else entirely. The occult. It started with reading about black magic. Then came stories about spirits, forbidden books, and ancient rituals. And soon she was obsessed, particularly with jinn. She started collecting stories about them, watching videos, reading forums. The darker and more mysterious it was, the more intrigued she became. Now, this happened during a school break, when she had nothing but free time. And because she was always top of her class, straight A's, model student, her parents gave her total freedom. She could stay up all night, play games, watch videos, explore her weird, creepy hobbies. As far as they were concerned, she'd earned it. Then, one night, everything changed. Latifa says she was sitting in the living room with her parents when she decided to call it a night. Sarah was, as usual, still in their bedroom, glued to her computer. Latifa got up, walked to their room, and opened the door. And what she saw froze her in place. Sarah was sitting there, staring at the screen, but she looked absolutely terrified. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. Sweat poured down her forehead like she'd just run a marathon. The moment Latifa entered the room, Sarah whipped around, startled, and slammed her laptop shut. Latifa asked, "Are you okay? What happened?" Sarah didn't answer. She just said, "Nothing," climbed into bed and pulled the blanket over her. Latifa knew something was wrong. Something had seriously spooked her, but she didn't press. She turned off the light and went to sleep. Latifa didn't push her sister that night. She could tell Sarah wasn't okay, but she also knew that pressing her would only make things worse. So she let her be, climbed into bed, and eventually fell asleep. 2 days went by, and in those 2 days, something very unusual happened. Sarah didn't touch her computer, not once. Latifa says that alone was enough to set off alarm bells. Because Sarah lived on that computer. It was like her third arm. So when 2 whole days passed and that screen stayed dark, Latifah knew something wasn't right. She finally asked, "Sarah, what's going on? Did your PC finally get tired of you and shut itself down?" But Sarah just gave her this strange, distant look and said, "I don't feel like it." That was it. No explanation. Just that. And then she turned away and tried to go back to sleep. Latifah says Sarah had become obsessed with sleep. It was like she was hiding in it, escaping from something. She wasn't just tired. She was running from something invisible. And then came another night. Latifah remembers it clearly. She had gone to bed around 1 a.m. As usual, she fell into a heavy sleep. She's not the type to wake up easily. She says her sleep is like a coma. But that night, something stirred her. She couldn't tell if she was awake or dreaming. It was like being trapped between both. She started hearing sounds, faint at first, thuds like something hitting the wall, then crying, muffled, broken sobs, and then a scream, loud, piercing, real. That scream snapped her out of it. Latifah sat up, heart racing, blinking in the dark. She wasn't sure if it had been a nightmare or if something actually happened. But as her eyes adjusted to the dark, she turned to check on Sarah, and what she saw made her blood run cold. Sarah was lying in bed, one hand propped under her face, staring at her. Her eyes didn't blink. Her face didn't move. And then, slowly, she smiled. Not a sleepy smile, not a friendly one. This smile was wrong, wide, still, empty. And without a word, Sarah turned and faced the wall. Latifah sat there, frozen. "What's wrong with you?" she whispered. No answer. So she turned back around, pulled her blanket over her head and tried to sleep. The next day, she didn't wake up until nearly sunset. She'd overslept. Still groggy, she got up to perform her prayers. Sarah still was asleep, or pretending to be. Latifah went to make wudu, and as she stood at the sink, she felt this intense pressure across her shoulders, like someone had tied a boulder to her back. Her body felt heavy, like she'd been hauling something massive all night in her sleep. She chalked it up to exhaustion. Maybe she was getting sick. She went back to the room to pray. Her first prayer was for Fajr, 2 rak'ahs. It was tough, but she got through it. But then she stood up to perform dur, and that's when things got really strange. As she went into her first sujood and lifted her head back up, she froze. Something was off. Her room looked reversed. The direction she was facing, it was wrong. She was praying opposite the Qibla. She stared around in confusion. Was she that tired? Had she laid the rug the wrong way? She stood up, fixed the rug, turned it the correct direction, and started over. She even redid Fajr, just in case. Then she went back into sujood, and again, when she lifted her head, the room was reversed again. She was sure she had aligned her prayer rug correctly. She remembered every movement, but somehow the entire room had flipped. The layout, the direction, everything. There was only one explanation that made any kind of sense. The room itself was moving, or at least something was making it feel that way. Latifah was still trying to wrap her head around what was happening, how the room seemed to shift every time she prayed, when something else stopped her in her tracks. The layout of the room was burned into her memory. The beds were always behind her when she faced the Qibla, always. But now, while she was praying, she looked up and saw her sister Sarah sitting upright on her bed, directly in front of her. That made no sense. If Sarah was in front of her, that meant the Qibla was now behind her. She froze for a second, eyes locked on her sister. Sarah was awake, sitting quietly, feet dangling off the side of the bed, slowly swinging them side to side. She wasn't saying anything, just staring. But her face, it looked off. Not distorted, not physically different, but something in the expression wasn't right, like it wasn't really her. Latifah looked at her and said quietly, "I don't know what's going on, Sarah. I've been praying in the wrong direction this whole time." But Sarah didn't say a word. She just stared at her for a moment, then turned and laid back down like nothing had happened. Determined to get it right, Latifah tried again. She realigned the rug, checked the direction, told herself this time it had to be right. She prayed. But as soon as she came up from sujood, the same thing had happened again. She was facing away from the Qibla. She stood there stunned, whispering to herself, "There's no way. This isn't possible." So she left the room and went to the living room instead, thinking maybe it was just something in the bedroom. She placed the rug down, checked the direction again, and began her prayer. But the moment she lifted her head, everything was flipped again. It didn't matter where she went in the house. The result was always the same. Every space seemed to twist around her. Even while she was still in sujood, she opened her eyes and looked side to side, trying to catch the room shifting in real time. But everything looked completely normal until she lifted her head and once again found herself praying in the wrong direction. The pain in her shoulders kept growing heavier, like something was physically weighing her down. It felt like she had a mountain strapped to her back, but she refused to give in. She muttered under her breath, "I seek refuge in God," and decided to just keep going. No matter how wrong the direction felt, she was going to finish her prayers. And she did. When she returned to her bedroom with her prayer rug and scarf in hand, Sarah was awake again. But this time, she wasn't in bed. She was sitting in the corner of the room facing the wall and smiling. She was whispering softly, giggling every few seconds, like she was talking to someone. There was no one there. Latifah stopped in the doorway, heart hammering in her chest. The second Sarah noticed her, she turned her head slowly toward her and smiled. That same eerie, too wide, too calm smile. Latifah backed up slightly, stunned. "Sarah, what are you doing? What's with the creepy stuff you've been doing lately?" she asked. Sarah didn't blink. She just looked at her and said, almost playfully, "You're not going to be able to pray here." Latifah didn't say another word. She dropped her things, turned around, and walked straight out of the room. The rest of the day passed without incident. Sarah stayed in bed as usual, got up, ate, went back to sleep. Nothing new. But that night, just as Latifah was finally getting ready for bed, she heard something. Sarah was whispering again. The words didn't make sense. It wasn't a language, at least not one Latifah recognized. Just a strange string of soft, rhythmic murmurs. She turned on the light beside her bed, trying to shake off the chill crawling up her spine. "Sarah?" she said. Sarah turned her head slowly. Her expression was empty, but her voice was low and harsh. "I want to leave," she said. Latifah furrowed her brow. "Leave? What do you mean, leave where?" "I want to get out of here," Sarah whispered. "Out of this house?" Latifah stared at her, too confused to respond. What did that even mean? But Sarah just turned away again and kept muttering. The only thing that made any sense were those same two words, "I want to get out," before her voice slipped back into that strange, unintelligible babble. Latifah, exhausted and numb, did the only thing she could. She ignored it and went to sleep. That night, as Latifah lay in bed, trying to forget everything that had been happening, the crushing pressure on her shoulders came back, stronger than ever. It felt like something was sitting on her, anchoring her down into the mattress. She tried turning onto her side, but her body wouldn't respond. She was stuck, lying flat on her back, unable to move. Out of frustration, she thought to herself, "That's it. I'm getting up. I'll take a painkiller, anything to get some sleep." She forced her eyes open, preparing to sit up, and that's when she saw it. There was something sitting on top of her. Not a person, not clearly anyway, just a shape. A black figure, hazy, like a shadow made of smoke. But it wasn't floating. It was on her chest, crouched low, as if it had been there for a long time. She couldn't see a face, couldn't make out its form clearly, but every inch of her body told her the same thing. This was what had been pressing down on her all night. And the second she looked at it, it vanished. It darted away so fast she couldn't tell where it went, just disappeared into the darkness. And as soon as it was gone, the weight lifted, instantly, like someone had taken a heavy backpack off her shoulders. Still shaking, She turned to glance at Sarah's bed. She was lying there, back facing her, completely still. Latifah didn't call her name. She didn't dare. She got up, quietly grabbed her medication, and made her way toward her parents' room. But just as she reached up to knock on the door, she felt something behind her. She turned, and there was Sarah, standing in the hallway just a few feet away. She hadn't heard her approach. No footsteps, no creaking floorboards. 1 second she was alone, and the next Sarah was just there, like she'd materialized out of thin air. She looked like a statue, motionless, blank, staring at her. Latifah froze, heart hammering in her chest. "Bismillah. Sarah, what's wrong with you? What are you doing?" Sarah didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was flat, emotionless. "What are you trying to do?" Latifah kept her voice calm. "I'm waking up, Mom." Sarah stared at her for a second, then turned around and walked back to their room. No comment, no reaction, just walked away. Right then, their mom opened the door. Latifah stepped inside and told her everything about the shadow, the weight on her body, the way Sarah had suddenly appeared behind her. "I swear, Mom, I saw it. Something was sitting on me, and the second I opened my eyes, it ran. I've never felt fear like that. And Sarah, she's been whispering all night." Her mom, clearly shaken, tried to stay calm. "Look, sweetheart, I don't know what's happening. I've noticed her acting strange too, but maybe you're just overtired. Don't think too much about it. Just read your prayers and get some sleep. We'll talk in the morning." Latifah didn't argue. She nodded, even though she knew what she'd seen was real. The next morning they woke up to screaming. It was her father. Latifah and her mom ran to him. He was outside near the house's rooftop water tank, pacing furiously, his face twisted with disgust and rage. He pointed down into the tank, shouting, "Who did this? Who would do something like this?" The water inside was filthy, thick, discolored, bubbling. Floating in the center was a dead cat, slashed, mutilated, its body twisted, as if it had been thrown in after being killed somewhere else. Her father had gone to make wudu and noticed the water looked off. When he opened the tank to check, he found that. They were horrified, but no one connected it to Sarah. Not yet. It just seemed like a sick, random event, so they tried to forget about it. But later that day, when Latifah returned to her room, she noticed something she couldn't ignore. Sarah was in bed, still asleep, but her feet were sticking out from under the blanket, and they were covered in black fur. And worse, there were smudges of blood on her legs. Not dried paint, not dirt. It was unmistakable. Latifah's breath caught in her throat. She ran straight to her parents, pulled them into the room and said, "Look, there's cat fur on her legs. There's blood. Look for yourselves." Her mother and father stepped into the room, walked up to Sarah's bed, and as if she'd been waiting for them, Sarah opened her eyes and smiled. A calm, casual smile. Her father sat next to her, his voice trembling. "Sarah, sweetheart, are you okay?" She nodded slowly. Then he asked gently, "Was it you? Did you do that to the cat?" Sarah didn't say anything. She just kept smiling. Latifah says that when her father saw the smile on Sarah's face, it was the scariest thing he had ever witnessed. It wasn't just a smile. It was the kind of smile that tells you everything without needing a single word. Sarah didn't even speak. She just looked at them, smiled that cold, haunting smile, and gently nodded. Yes, she had done it. Her father's face didn't show anger. It showed something worse, fear. He softly said, "Okay, baby. It's all right. Just lie down, get some rest." Then he turned to Latifah and her mother and, without a word, motioned for them to step outside. Once they were out of the room, he shut the door behind them and finally spoke. "She's not okay," he said. "I've been trying to tell myself maybe it's just stress, or maybe we're imagining things, but no, there's something in that girl. I'm sure of it now. Something is wrong. This thing with the cat, this isn't normal. Either she's possessed, or she's really, really sick." He said he didn't want to waste another day. "I'm calling a sheikh this afternoon." And that whole morning, no one could sit still. No one ate, no one slept. They just waited. Every second dragged. Latifa said it felt like the house was holding its breath. When afternoon finally came, her father left and brought the sheikh. The entire time, Sarah stayed in her room. She didn't come out once, didn't speak, didn't make a sound, just stayed in there, completely silent. When they arrived, Latifa's father told the sheikh everything, from the whispering to the sleepwalking to the way Sarah had started changing, inside and out. The sheikh nodded, then walked up to the door and knocked. No response. He knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. He turned to Latifa and her mother. "One of you needs to open the door," he said. "I need to make sure she's dressed before I come in." Latifa stepped forward and opened the door, and what she saw made her heart slam into her chest. The room was empty. Sarah was gone. They searched the entire house like people who had lost their minds. Latifa and her mother ran through every hallway, every room, every closet. Her father was outside, checking the roof, the yard, the gate. But nothing. Sarah had vanished. The window in her room was sealed shut, locked and barred from the outside with iron grills. There was no possible way out. They hadn't left the door open. They hadn't looked away. And yet, she was gone. Her father broke down. He began shouting, yelling about calling the police, about reporting a missing person. "We have to find her. She was right here. How did she disappear?" But the sheikh stopped him. "Wait," he said calmly. "Don't call the police. Not yet. Give me some time. I'll leave now and I want you to wait. Just half an hour. 1 hour at most. If she doesn't come back, then you can call me. But if I'm right, she will." Before leaving, the sheikh closed the door to Sarah's room and told them to wait in the living room. No one goes back in there until the time passes. So they waited. Every minute felt like a lifetime. No one spoke. No one moved. The air in the house was thick with dread. Finally, after what felt like hours, Latifa's father stood up and slowly walked back to the room. He reached for the doorknob, paused, then opened it. And there she was. Sarah was back in bed, lying exactly the way she always did, still asleep, like she had never left. Latifa's father stood in the doorway, stunned. Then he picked up the phone and called the sheikh. "She's back." On the other end, the sheikh wasn't surprised. "Just as I thought," he said. "Your daughter is possessed, that much is certain, and whatever has taken hold of her, it's powerful. This isn't some minor spirit. This is a stubborn, malicious jinn. The moment it sensed my presence, it fled with her to keep her away from me. So I couldn't read over her, couldn't help her. But once it knew I was gone, it brought her back." Latifa's father didn't even ask what to do next. He just said, "What now?" And the sheikh answered simply, "You have to get her out of that house, somewhere else. Don't tell her why. Just get her out. Then tell me where you are, and I'll come." Latifa says her parents finally came up with a plan. One day, they casually told Sarah the whole family was going out for the day, just to relax, go for a walk, maybe visit one of the parks she liked. Something light, something innocent, and Sarah, surprisingly, agreed. Her mother gently convinced her, "Come on, sweetheart, it's the garden you love, the one with the swings and the lake." So they all got in the car and headed out. But what Sarah didn't know was that her parents had already contacted the sheikh. He would be meeting them at the destination, hoping that if Sarah was away from home, she wouldn't sense it in time. But somehow, she did. During the car ride, she kept repeating one chilling sentence. "If the sheikh comes, you won't find me." Her parents kept brushing it off. "What sheikh, sweetheart? No one's bringing anyone. We're just going out as a family." But when they arrived, just as the sheikh pulled up and stepped out of his car, Sarah vanished in the blink of an eye. 1 second she was in the car and the next, gone. Latifa says it was like watching someone disappear mid-blink. No warning, no noise, just gone. The sheikh stayed calm. He turned to them and said, "Don't panic. She'll be at home. That's where they always take them. Go. Try to get her to stay still long enough for me to read over her, or at least let me read in the same room." So they rushed back to the house, And sure enough, Sarah was there, in bed, asleep, but no one could explain how she had gotten there. At this point, the family was unraveling. They felt helpless. Sarah's condition was getting worse by the day. She barely ate. She barely moved. Her body had wasted away, just skin and bones. Her eyes were hollow, her face gaunt. It was like the person she used to be had slowly rotted away, and something else had taken her place. Eventually, Latifa sat down with the sheikh and told him something she hadn't shared before. The last night Sarah ever seemed normal. She had been sitting at her PC, alone, in complete silence, staring at something. Latifa hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now, knowing everything that had happened since, she was sure that night was the beginning. She must have seen something, Latifa told him, or maybe read something she shouldn't have. The sheikh nodded, his face grim, and decided to go into their bedroom alone and begin the ruqya. As soon as he started reading, Sarah disappeared again, gone, just like before. And then, from inside the room, Latifa and her parents heard it. A loud explosion. They ran to the door, and when it finally opened, the sheikh stepped out. His face was pale. He looked straight at them and said, "Her computer just exploded. Whatever evil came into this house, it came through that machine. She must have opened a site, something forbidden, something cursed." After that, the years passed in a blur. They stopped trying to fix it. They couldn't. Latifa got married and started her own life, but deep down, she never really moved on. Her parents were the ones who stayed, caring for Sarah, watching her fade away. Until one night, Latifa was asleep when her husband suddenly shook her awake, panicked. "Wake up. Your mom's been calling over and over. She's crying. She said something's happened to Sarah." Still groggy, Latifa grabbed her phone and called back. Her mother's voice was breaking, trembling, almost inaudible. Sarah's gone." Latifa says she cried the entire drive back to the house, her husband trying to calm her the whole way, but nothing could prepare her for what she saw when they arrived. Police cars, an ambulance, lights flashing. Her mother had woken up in the middle of the night to the sound of Sarah screaming from behind her locked door. She and Latifa's father had rushed to open it, but it wouldn't budge. From inside, they heard what sounded like violence, blows, thuds, like someone was attacking her. And then, silence. They kept pounding on the door, her father ramming it over and over until finally it cracked, and in doing so, he broke his shoulder. But he didn't stop. He kept going until the door gave in. Inside, they found Sarah lying in bed, perfectly still, peaceful, as if she had simply gone to sleep. She was under the covers, face soft, no blood, no bruises, no sign that anything had just happened, let alone a violent attack. But she was gone. The medical report confirmed the cause of death, severe malnutrition. Her body had shut down from starvation. Because of that, the authorities were notified, suspecting that maybe her family had neglected her or withheld food. That's why the police were there. But in the end, it was ruled as a natural health complication. They told the family she had just wasted away. But Latifa knew the truth. She had been dying for a long time. Latifa says that what happened to her sister still haunts their entire family to this day. Her parents, they're not the same people anymore. Since that night, they've barely slept, unless it's with the help of medication. They go in and out of psychiatric clinics now, trying to cope with something no parent should ever have to experience. As for Latifa, she says her life has been hollow ever since. Nothing feels right anymore. She wakes up heavy, numb, drained of any will to do even the simplest things. She says if it weren't for her husband, this kind, patient man who stood by her through everything, she's not sure how she would have survived it. He's been her rock, her only light in a tunnel that feels like it has no end. And that is where Sarah's story ends. A story so tragic, even the people who lived through it still don't fully understand what happened. That's what makes it worse. There was no closure, no clear reason, no explanation. Just a brilliant young girl who disappeared into darkness. But if you look back, the signs are there. Her obsession with forbidden websites, her fascination with jinn stories and black magic, her habit of accessing encrypted corners of the internet she should have never been in. Somewhere in all of that, she must have stumbled on something she wasn't meant to see. Something that didn't just terrify her, it took her. Maybe it was a spell, maybe a curse, maybe just a moment of careless curiosity. Whatever it was, it left a family broken, and it left Latifa with a lifetime of questions no one can answer. We pray that Allah grants them peace, that He forgives Sarah, that whatever consumed her in her final days, whatever darkness took hold, He replaces it with light and mercy and rest. And if you've made it this far, I want to leave you with this. Please be careful. This world, this hidden world of spirits, jinn, and the unseen, it's not just fun or interesting. It's real, and it doesn't care how old you are or what your intentions were. One wrong click, one wrong page, one wrong word spoken at the wrong time, and you might not get a second chance, just like Sarah didn't.